The Iron Pens. Chapter 1. Chains of Lordaeron. The rain in Hillsbrad never seemed to stop. It fell in cold sheets across the internment camp, turning the packed earth into a sea of brown sludge that swallowed boots and shackles alike. Rusted iron fences rose from the mud like the ribs of some dead beast, their spikes black against the gray sky. Beyond them stood human watchtowers draped in wet banners bearing the Lion of Lordaeron. Torches hissed and spat in the rain, and somewhere in the distance a prisoner screamed. No one looked up anymore when that happened. Durok sat with his back against the timber wall of Barrack 9, his broad shoulders hunched beneath a threadbare wool blanket stolen from a corpse 3 winters ago. Water dripped steadily through the roof and pattered onto the floor between his feet. His tusks were chipped. One eye was swollen nearly shut from a beating earlier that morning. He looked older than his 23 years. Beside him lay his younger brother, Karguk. Karguk was sleeping, though it was not the sleep of peace. His body twitched beneath the blanket, and every few breaths he muttered in Orcish, fragments of dreams that belonged to another world. Durok listened carefully. "Nagrand," Karguk whispered. "The grass." Then the dream changed. Karguk jerked violently, his hand reaching for a weapon that was no longer there. Durok caught his wrist before the guards could notice. "Easy," he murmured in Orcish. "You're here." Karguk's eyes snapped open. For a heartbeat they were wild with panic, searching for enemies. Then he saw his brother, and the fear loosened. "I was hunting talbuks," Karguk said hoarsely. "No," Durok replied. "You were dreaming of hunting talbuks." The younger orc stared at the leaking roof. He was only 17, though the camp had stripped away any trace of youth. His ribs showed beneath his skin. His hair, once black, had faded to a dull brown from malnutrition. The humans called him Whelp when they bothered to call him anything at all. A bell rang outside. Every orc in the barrack stiffened. Morning count. Durok rose immediately and hauled Karguk to his feet. The younger orc swayed, weak from hunger. Durok slipped an arm beneath his shoulder before he could fall. "Stay upright," Durok said. "I'm trying. Try harder." The barrack doors slammed open. Cold rain blew inside, along with Sergeant Halbrecht, a thick-necked human whose beard was flecked with gray. "On your feet, beasts," he barked. "Move." The guards carried cudgels instead of swords. Swords were for soldiers. Cudgels were for prisoners. The orcs shuffled out into the yard in chains of 10. Mud sucked at their feet. Some coughed. Others stared blankly ahead, with the hollow expression that had become common in the camps. The humans called it the lethargy. Durok hated that word. It made their suffering sound like an illness instead of a wound. They joined the line in the central yard, shoulder to shoulder with hundreds of other orcs. Rain streamed down green skin and scarred faces. A few older warriors still carried themselves with pride, but most stood bent from years of labor, beatings, and starvation. Karguk trembled beside him. "Cold?" Durok asked quietly. "Hungry." Durok said nothing. Hunger was a permanent condition now, like breathing. Halbrecht walked the line, counting. When he reached the brothers, his gaze lingered on Karguk. "This one's getting smaller every day," he said to another guard. "Won't last the winter," the other replied. They spoke as though the orcs could not understand common. Durok kept his eyes forward. He had learned that lesson the hard way. 2 months earlier, an orc named Grom had looked a guard in the eye during inspection. The guards had beaten him until his jaw hung loose from his face. They left him outside overnight as an example. By morning, he was frozen solid. Karguk swallowed hard. Durok felt the movement and knew what his brother was thinking. "Don't react." The count finished. The prisoners were divided into work details. Some would repair roads. Some would unload grain shipments. Others would dig drainage trenches around the camp. Durok and Karguk were assigned to the trenches. The overseer handed them shovels with cracked wooden handles. The iron heads were dull from years of use. "Dig until sunset," the overseer said. "If the trench isn't finished, you don't eat." A few orcs exchanged hopeless glances. Durok simply took his shovel. The trench ran along the eastern fence, where runoff from the hills pooled ankle-deep. The mud there was thick and heavy, more clay than soil. Every shovelful felt like lifting stone. They worked in silence at first. Rain soaked through Durok's blanket and tunic until everything clung to his skin. His muscles ached from old injuries that never had time to heal. Beside him, Karguk struggled to keep pace. After an hour, the younger orc stumbled. The overseer's whistle shrieked. "Up!" the human shouted. Karguk tried to rise, but his legs failed beneath him. The overseer strode over and drove a boot into his ribs. Karguk gasped, curling around the pain. Durok's grip tightened on his shovel. For one terrible moment he imagined swinging it. He saw the iron edge crushing the human's skull. He saw the guards rushing him. He saw himself dying. And he saw Karguk left alone, so he forced himself to breathe. The overseer raised the boot again. "Please," Karguk wheezed in broken common. "I can work." The human sneered. "Then work." Durok stepped forward before the next kick landed. "I'll take his section," he said in common. The overseer looked him up and down. "You?" "Yes." "Then both sections get finished, or neither of you eats." He walked away laughing. Karguk remained curled in the mud, breathing in short, ragged bursts. Durok knelt beside him. "Can you stand?" "I think so." "Don't think. Do it." Together they got him upright. Karguk leaned heavily against his brother. "I'm sorry," he whispered in Orcish. Durok shook his head. "Save your strength." They dug through the afternoon. When Karguk weakened, Durok shifted closer so their shoulders touched. When Karguk's shovel slowed, Durok quietly took larger loads. The trench advanced inch by inch through the rain. By sunset, their hands were bleeding. The overseer inspected the work and grunted. "Good enough." That was all. No praise, no mercy. Just permission to live one more night. The prisoners lined up for supper. Each received a wooden bowl of thin barley broth and a heel of stale bread. The broth smelled faintly of cabbage and mostly of water. Karguk stared at his portion, as if trying to decide whether it was worth eating. Durok broke his bread in half and added one piece to his brother's bowl. "No," Karguk protested. "Eat it." "You need it too." "I said eat it." Karguk obeyed. They sat beneath the barrack awning while rain hammered the yard. Around them, other orcs hunched over their meals in silence. No one wasted energy talking. Karguk swallowed slowly, savoring every bite. "Do you remember Father's fire pit?" he asked suddenly. Durok nodded. "The one near the river." "I remember." Karguk stared into the watery broth. "I keep trying to remember the smell of the meat he cooked there." Durok felt something twist inside his chest. He remembered it perfectly. Roasted klefthoof, wood smoke, the wind from the plains. But he did not tell Karguk that. Some memories became cruel when spoken aloud. The camp bell rang again, signaling lockdown. Prisoners shuffled back into the barracks. Durok guided Karguk to their corner and helped him lie down. The younger orc winced as bruised ribs touched the floor. Outside, thunder rolled across Hillsbrad. Karguk turned onto his side to face his brother. "Durok," he said quietly. "What?" "If I die here." Durok's expression hardened immediately. "Don't say that." "But if I do." "You won't." Karguk studied him for a long moment. In the darkness, Durok's battered face looked carved from stone. "How do you know?" the younger orc asked. Durok pulled the stolen blanket over both of them. "Because," he said, I am not letting this place take you." For the first time that day, Karguk almost smiled. Outside, the rain kept falling. Inside Barrack 9, the brothers lay shoulder to shoulder on the hard wooden floor, sharing a single blanket against the cold. It was not enough to keep out the damp, or the hunger, or the despair that hung over the camp like a sickness, but it was enough to survive the night. And in the internment camps of Lordaeron, survival was the only victory left.